Going to the captive audience, I'm Kevin Hoare, and it is the 19th of February. We are hurtling through the short session of the legislature, but we have something very special to bring to you tonight. A presentation of information and two very well informed individuals that I got to hear from on Friday with regard to something that, well, we know people really don't like. And some people think is a necessary evil, but then there's evil and then there's evil. So we're going to find out about tolling tonight. And with us, we have John Lay, who is the gentleman who gave the presentation on Friday, and also Dean Sewer. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, that's good.
He is the author of Vote Before Tolls and also the chief petitioner of Vote Before Tolls, which is a IP4, which is a statewide petition to require that there be a vote on any tolls before they are imposed on the population in a specific area of the state. And we're going to talk about both the issue of tolling and what you need to know, as well as what we can do about it. So welcome, gentlemen, to the program here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Kevin.
Thank you.
And I think that what struck me on Friday about this is I thought I kind of knew the issue, and then I learned all this stuff from you guys, which just surprised me because it's a lot worse than just paying for the same roads that you've already built. There's laws that are being effectively circumvented, or they're finding loopholes and exceptions. Sometimes they're just ignoring them. Other times it's a matter of cost and efficiency, and that's being ignored. So why don't we kind of launch into the history here of this, and then we'll kind of work our way towards what's being done about it, because there is something that can be done about it. Nothing is really being done positive by people running the state of Oregon. So let's just lay that out right now. They're the ones who have thought this is a wonderful idea. But now let's go into, I guess, the history of this. So why don't we just launch right there, John? Where would you like to start?
Well, thanks, Kevin. And thank you to your audience for your interest. I got involved like a lot of you, just as an average citizen, and tolling came onto our local front for discussion back during the Columbia River crossing discussion, which is now well over a decade old. And at that point in time, they were looking at a $3.5 billion project. And as always, government needs more money. Well, how do we pay our share? And they had decided that somewhere between $1.2 and $1.5 billion of the $3.5 billion price tag for the CRC was going to come from tolling. The concept was they were going to go to Wall Street, borrow the money, and then the stream of money from tolling over 25, 30, 35 years would pay back the borrowed loans plus interest. As many folks may kind of know, the Columbia River crossing was allegedly killed back in late 2013 when Washington State walked away from the deal and refused to pay their share of the two states' costs. And so it was supposedly dead. In reality, it was put into a medically induced coma, to use medical terms, and the politicians, not surprisingly, never accept no for an answer. They just let it subside. They kept working below the scenes behind public scrutiny and ultimately brought it back to life in 2019 when the two governors resurrected the CRC, signing a memorandum to resurrect what is now the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. So that's tying in a little bit. CRC, it never went away. It came back, new name, but it's the same thing. In the middle of all of that, the Oregon legislature created House Bill 2017 in 2017. And the concept is the legislature's looking, how do we create a bucket of money from which we can then have political food fights over as everybody fights for their piece of the pie to deliver a new bridge or a road widening in their part of the state. And the initial question is, how much money can we create? How much is in the bucket? And then we have a food fight over where that money goes. And politics, of course, is about bringing home the bacon.
Yep.
Well, in HB 2017, the size of the project, the amount of money created was $5.3 billion. And all the senators and members of the House fought over it. And they came back and they said, hey, we're going to raise your gas taxes. We're going to raise your car registration fees. We're going to charge our truckers higher fees and all of this, but it's going to deliver all of these wonderful projects. Will you please support us?
And that was when they actually were going to make bicycles pay too. Isn't that part of it too? Yeah, that's right.
And for the first time ever, see, Kevin, you did a great job paying attention to the presentation. For the first time ever, bicyclists that are always have their hands out, we need more bicycle lanes and special bridges and special concessions, they were going to pay. How on earth are they paying? Well, allegedly it was a fee if they bought a brand new bicycle from an Oregon bicycle shop. Do you think in the world of internet sales, they found a way around that? Nobody's ever admitted how much bicyclists have kicked into the bucket of funding.
Well, I actually remember in 2018 in the governor's race, when they proposed this idea, there was this interview that a local media person did with a hapless employee at a bicycle shop who, when he was told that he was going to suddenly be paying a tax, the look on his face is precious. You know, liberal as all get out, but like, what? You know, and that went all over the internet and became part of that gubernatorial campaign debate. So that's why I remember that so well.
Yeah. And so part of that sales pitch was, hey, everybody's going to pay their pound of flesh. Well, in reality, they shaved a little bit of copper off a penny or something, and that was the bicyclist share, a rounding error for ODOT.
Yeah.
But embedded in the language of House Bill 2017 was direction for ODOT to study tolling. There was not authorization for them to implement it or to impose it. It was to evaluate tolling to see whether or not it would work. And so with great fanfare, ODOT moved forward. They created a special committee with 25 members from actually 4 different counties, the 3 Portland metro area counties, and then they included 3 representatives from Clark County. And to great public accolades, discussions, and studying in depth over about 7.5 months, every aspect of tolling. They proposed 8 different options for tolling. And these consultants that ODOT hired, great fanfare, here's all the information. And in the course of 2 months, proposed 8 options and immediately eliminated the most common sense option of all 8 options. And that was to add a new lane to both I-5 and I-205 in both directions, north and southbound directions, and only toll those new lanes. And that actually complies with federal law.
Yeah, federal law. Why don't you explain what federal law, the role it plays in this one?
And so in a macro sense, federal law says you're prohibited from tolling on federal highways. And there are a couple of caveats to that. One is if you are adding new lanes or new vehicle capacity to a federal highway, federal interstate, then you control those lanes to help raise money to pay your share of the cost of adding those lanes, because the federal government never picks up the full price. The state usually kicks in a chunk, but then you have to have your price. So they said, if you toll just those new lanes, the new capacity, you can do it. Or if you're adding a new bridge, a new vehicle corridor, you can toll that to raise part of the cost of that. But generally speaking, you can't do that. Well, of course, at some point, Congress always carves out special deals.
Yeah.
And somebody in Congress said, well, we want to do a test of a special congestion pricing that will allow just a few states to see if this works, if it'll improve traffic. Well, of course, the geniuses in ODOT and our federal legislators said, oh, we want one of those slots. And so my understanding was that 17 exemptions were created, and Oregon latched onto one of those to try this congestion pricing, this value pricing program. And so bottom line is that is what they're hoping to impose on anybody. But again, the concept is you're supposed to build something new, add something of value to the citizens because you've got traffic congestion. Sadly, Oregon only wants a new pool of money to pick the people's pockets. And this whole discussion initially centered around value pricing. We're going to give the people value.
Yeah.
But the consultants in ODOT immediately eliminated, in less than 2 months,
They eliminated the value.
Option that was add a new lane to I-5, I-205, and only toll those lanes. They told the 25 member pack, this will actually deliver the best improvement in number of vehicles moving through the corridor, in average speeds. Everybody benefits because you're going to add vehicle capacity. What a concept. And they discarded it, sadly, saying it costs too much. Well, then when the members of the pack, and I have to give a huge foot stomper here to Clackamas County Commissioner Paul Savas.
Yes.
I didn't know him before this. He became my hero of all 25 members because he very politely asked extremely relevant questions. And the ODOT people and their consultants refused to answer them. But he said,
They refused.
Go ahead, Kevin.
They refused to answer them?
Yeah. Now, they never say, take a hike, I'm not answering your question. They always deflect. But he asked, and several other people followed up on it, well, what's the price? You're saying this costs too much. What's the cost? And the consultants in ODOT just said, oh, no. It's just so much. It's an astronomical cost. They paint this with half-truths, lies, whatever. And so bottom line is none of the 25 members could use their own judgment to decide, is there enough value in this proposal? Because we know it gives the best vehicle throughput. It results in the highest speed for travelers. Maybe I'm willing to bite the bullet and say, let's go for this. But they refuse to tell them. And
so it's just another commission that they've created where they said, okay, these people are going to sit in judgment of this. And then they take away all the potential common sense options that make economic sense and leave them with the option they wanted them to choose in the end, and then turn them into a bunch of automatons where they just have to actually take the preconceived outcome and deliver it, which I was just looking at this. So you've got a presentation. I think there's a really good graphic here.
there you go.
This one I found very helpful when you presented it the other day, because these are the 8 options, which, as I recall, there's really 4 options and then a second set of 4 options, which are kind of a hybrid between the first 4. And and I can see here, like, you got 1, 2, 3, and 4 across the top. Why don't you walk through those and we'll just say, make it really clear for folks what those are.
So Kevin, if you can go to slideshow and just do the slideshow from that current slide, it'll blow it up just so that the people can see it a little better. But basically late December of 2017 and early January 2018, this is what the WSP consultants came up with and presented to the Value Pricing PAC, Policy Advisory Committee. And there were, disappeared. At any rate, they gave 8 options.
I'm bringing it back, but I'm bringing it back in. It's trying to see if I can't bring it. I don't think I can do the larger
slideshow.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. hang on just a second here. I gotta come out of this now. I should have experimented with this before we went live, but yeah, let me just go ahead and take it back to the thing we were doing there, which
it's better than nothing. Yep.
Yeah. No, and it's pretty visible because it made us small, which is actually probably better. There we go.
Yes, thank you.
So now you can see. Oh, let me bring it. There we go.
There you go.
Drag the right-hand side of that window to the edge there. That'll increase the graphic. Not that one. Nope. Well, that'll work, but also on the right-hand side.
At any rate, for the audience here, there were basically 4 options, the top 4. And in understanding the world of ODOT and transportation, you always have to show a no build option. So in the upper left in black is the no build option. No tolls, no project, no waste of your taxpayer dollars. The next one was tolling all lanes. Build nothing, but toll all lanes. The third one in green was convert one of the existing lanes to tolling and toll only that lane, but add no capacity. And in orange, the fourth option was build a brand new lane in all directions, north and southbound on both I-5 and 205, and only toll that lane. Then the bottom 4 are, let's just choose one. So they did no tolls, and in the bottom left, no tolls on I-5, and we will build a new lane and only toll that on I-205. Then they reversed it a little bit, and they says, we're not going to do anything on I-205, and on I-5, we'll just toll all lanes, and then ... all the way across the bottom. They had zero intention of doing any of the bottom 4.
Yeah.
But they highlighted the 4 options and say, see, we're giving you an untold number of options so that you can test the concept of tolling.
Now, isn't it true that the toll all lanes option just didn't really comport with federal law, or was this because they had this congestion pricing test exception where they might have gotten away with that if they chose it?
Exactly right. And because they had the exemption, they felt they could implement that to see if it actually improved traffic flows. And so
let me just comment for a second. Thank you, John. John is a real transportation expert. He's done a lot of work on this. He's worked with Clark County and with the bridge and with all of us down here as well. But let me just, for those of you that are not in the Portland metro area, the 2 segments of road they're talking about here, that little right part of that curve, there you go, is 205 down at the very bottom there where it kind of makes that little dip, the road on the right. That is the only section of 205 that is 2 lanes wide. The rest of 205 is 3, 4, maybe even 5 lanes wide when you get up by I-84. And in the case of Interstate 5, the only place it is narrower than 3 lanes is through the Rose Quarter, right through that downtown section, which of course is a difficult place to expand. And I'll give them, I'll give them some credit for identifying that being a challenge. But this whole idea of congestion-based pricing, keep us off the road, that's not the issue. The issue is, and we don't need more capacity, we need consistent capacity. You can't take 3 lanes and on coming in and 3 lanes going out and put 2 lanes in the middle and expect it to handle as much traffic. And that's exactly
everywhere we go. So whenever there's a traffic jam, it's always where the number of lanes narrows.
Well, yeah, and in the case of 205, the lanes narrow right at the base of a hill, kind of our equivalent of the West Hills down here, and the trucks have to slow down when they merge. They can't accelerate. Regular drivers here don't often know how to accelerate either, and so it's just, the problem is that we need a 3rd lane. So there's this absurdity that's on top of this whole idea of how did we get to where we are with tolling. The other thing to remember for the rest of you, I think you're kind of scattered about the state, probably more of you in the city areas, but anywhere there's a river, a mountain, or no other highway is where ODOT's going to toll. This effort that's undergoing right now is starting in Portland. It's already expanded to 2 more highways in Portland, but it will be across the state. Wherever there's a river or mountain and there's no other choice, where they can force you to have to cross that bridge or there's no other parallel highway, it's a money grab. So I apologize, John, for interrupting you there, but I just wanted to put that perspective in people's minds.
That's an important perspective, because even though there's plenty of people that watch this show and pay attention to the Portland metro area, and some people just say, well, the heck with Portland, they're idiots. Let them, suffer. Oh, it is only a matter of time before they apply this to all of I-5, certainly extending down through Eugene.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before they apply it to places like, I-84 all the way out going west. If they think it's an idea they can get away with, not a good idea. I almost said the word good accidentally, but if it's an idea they think they can get away with, they'll do it. And it's funny because federal law was specifically designed to make sure you weren't allowed to toll something you already had built.
Right. But this is not just federal highways. This is state highways they're authorized for. So 22 and 20 and 22 coming out of Salem, east, west, 101, 26 out to the coast, up to Mount Hood. And I'm just not as familiar with all the highway numbers in central and southern Oregon, but any state highway, which is our primary backbone of transportation, is a target here. And I would also like to say, and I'm going to turn it back to you, John, to keep running us through the story, because you're still in 2017. But I'm a driver. Virtually everybody in this state is a driver.
Yeah.
And we want good roads, and we know we need to pay for them, but we don't need to waste money while we're paying for them. I don't want to pay $1 and only have 15 cents or 16 cents go to the actual road. I want to pay $1 and have 90 cents of it go. I know there's some overhead with collection and so on.
And I know that's what we're going to get to here in a minute, because we're talking about how they eliminated the options that made the most sense, that had this, as this shows here, the greatest traffic benefit, the highest throughput and speeds, the shortest travel times, and they eliminated that option.
Right.
So they really weren't interested in any of those things. They were interested in something else. So anyway, where should we return to here in the slides, John?
Well, and the bottom right there was no vote by the Policy Advisory Committee. 25 people representing small communities, large communities, transportation agencies, the trucking association, all of that. They were part of this committee, and yet they were never given the ability to say thumbs up, thumbs down on the final plan that emerged, or on any particular recommendation that they wanted. And it was that way by design, to move the process along and to get going forward. So at the end of the whole process, the Oregon Transportation Commission said, oh, okay, we're just going to continue the study and move it forward to the federal government and let ODOT do their thing, and we'll see what we can do next. So then House Bill 3055, and I think it was 2020, I forget the exact year, took the study of tolling and advanced it to now we authorize ODOT to implement tolling. And
that
again,
was right. The thing that Tina Kotek voted yes on in 2017, but no on 3055.
Yeah, exactly right. And so it was just study originally, and it's the old get the camel's nose into the tent a little bit, a lot of press, a lot of pretend listening sessions, and then ultimately the implementation came in 3055 when fewer people were paying attention because other things were happening. But bottom line, yeah. And an interesting, amazing, and maddening aspect of this whole thing was that in the Value Pricing Policy Advisory Committee study of all the different tolling, they shared with the PAC members that at that time, in late 2017, early 2018, that 50,000 vehicles every single day were already diverting onto side roads. Why do vehicles divert when they've got highways, major arterials, and freeways?
Yeah.
The answer is there's not enough vehicle capacity. And so when it gets not enough capacity and everything gets slowed down and jammed up, people look for alternate ways. Well, the ODOT and their consultants shared, if you put tolls on all area freeways, and again, this shows the expansiveness of what Dean was talking about. The legislation allowed the study to potentially put tolls on any and all Oregon state highways from the border with Washington, anywhere they wanted to go in the state of Oregon. But the consultants revealed that instead of 50,000 vehicles presently diverting, there would be another 80,000 vehicles that would divert in the greater Portland metro area once tolling was put on all area freeways, which is Interstate 84, Highway 26, 217, 405, the whole shoot match. What an absolute nightmare. And to paint a mental picture for those paying attention, that's 130,000 vehicles every single day diverting. That equaled at the time the number of vehicles using the I-5 interstate bridge going from Oregon to Washington and vice versa.
Wow.
I mean,
well, we have that today. We have something called congestion-based congestion, because when I was trying to get someplace last Thursday, I was at Lake Oswego, Cruise Way, and I-5, and it said the fastest way to get out to Happy Valley was to actually drive towards Cruise Way and then down, and then all the way, and then just actually circumvent both I-5 and the 2-lane part of 205. And so what you're describing is actually what it's going to look like everywhere all the time, because they'll just use the cost that they're charging on the highway to force everybody to do what it looks like when traffic is at its worst. In fact, I imagine right now might be looked back at the good old days, because it only took an hour to get to Happy Valley from Cruise Way.
Yeah. And so you are spot on. Number one, everybody's got a cell phone or some device that, whether it's Waze or Google Maps or whatever, tells them the fastest way, offers them multiple options, and those are programmed to save time. As soon as they put tolls, you will be given an option: avoid tolls.
Yeah.
Guess what's going to happen? I have lived that. I'm a retired airline pilot, and amongst the many pleasures I've had was flying into New York City, into JFK. Well, to get from JFK into the city, there are a couple of major routes, all of which are grossly congested most of the day, and almost all of which involves tolls through various tunnels and whatnot. But when it got super congested, the limo driver that picked me and my crew up was zipping through side neighborhoods, through residential neighborhoods, doing 30 to 40 miles an hour, gunning through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm used to speed. And let me tell you, there were times I was nervous because he's zipping between parked cars. And I'm like, what if there are kids in this neighborhood that are playing, or, some pet zips out from a car or something? Unbelievable. But I totally understand, and it's a nightmare. And just citizens in the communities alongside these freeways that get tolled truly need to be concerned for safety and the quality of life where they live. And
this is that slide that conveyed what you were saying there. It's like 50,000 plus 80,000 will give us 130,000. That other slide I was showing earlier actually pointed out that by adding a lane on 217, that you reduced, that was Cascade Policy Institute, I believe. And they were pointing out that you don't have enough road capacity. And here's the proof: just by adding road capacity, which they say they don't want to do, right? They just want to toll you and punish you. When they did this adding a lane, they removed a bottleneck, and according to ODOT, that stretch of road went from 5 hours to 1 hour a day of congestion. So it can actually be done if what you do is add capacity. What they want to do is this, right? Because it's not value pricing. What they want to do is something, I think the word you used were behavior modification.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first year to year and a half, Don Hamilton, the spokesman for ODOT, was constantly going around talking about behavior modification. You know, if people can afford it, or if their trip needs the immediate speed, they'll pay for it and they'll go. But we hope that the behavior modification will cause people to alter the time that they travel, or maybe carpool or use mass transit, or they will combine trips and do fewer trips and make lots of them when they go. Well, the reality, number one, as I said the other day, does anybody think the government has the right to modify your behavior?
I seem to remember a massive experiment with that recently. What was that? I think they locked us all in our homes and then told us you're not allowed to go anywhere unless you do X, Y, and Z. And that was a massive experiment in behavior modification. And I'm pretty sure people don't want to ever experience that again. But then that's not the only time they're doing this, right? Now, why? Let me ask you something. Why are they trying to modify our behavior? Why don't they just add more capacity, like Cascade Policy Institute said solved the problem in the past? Why are they trying to modify? What is the behavior that we're engaging in that is bad?
We're exercising freedom of travel. Shame on us for saying, you know what? I want to run to the grocery store, or, hey, I want to go meet my best friend at a local coffee shop or whatever, and I'm going to, or, well, whatever. I want to go. I need to go. I mean, clearly you look at the history of the world, the automobile gave people more freedom, more flexibility to travel, to do things that they never dreamed of. And sadly, the reality is, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Kevin, the honest answer is that the Portland metro area politically has a war on cars.
They do, yeah. That's exactly it. Right?
Absolutely hate the fact that people will get in a car and choose it to go somewhere. And so one of the concepts that they have gotten legislatively, ODOT and the political leaders to adopt, is no more than 3 lanes, or we just don't want to add any more capacity, period. There are groups called No More Freeways.
Yes, I saw that.
Actively lobby.
Yeah, they're actually, so the state will say, we're going to build a freeway, or we're going to expand it here. And that's the Rose Quarter thing, by the way, too, right?
Yeah.
And there's compromises that have to be made. And then there's eminent domain that sometimes gets asserted. But ultimately, the state has actually said they want to expand roadways. And there are groups that then just go to work on the same politicians to prevent it from ever happening. Money's been budgeted. Taxes, including gas taxes, have been raised to pay for some of this. And then they don't do it. And, you know, the last time something like the CRC, I remember that. And the CRC, it wasn't free what they did. They spent a bunch of time talking about and studying whether they're going to build the CRC. Didn't they spend like about $200 or $220 million, and they didn't build anything?
Exactly right. $200 million to study the problem and fill the pockets of these consultants. And I mentioned WSP as the consultant. Their predecessor was up to their eyeballs in the CRC. And even though it failed, they're back. They are now advising they're the lead consultant on the interstate bridge replacement. They're the lead consultant on the Rose Quarter project. They're the lead consultant on the Abernathy Bridge project. They're the lead consultant on the tolling project. Gee, do you think they love ODOT and WashDOT? Hey, you do whatever you want. Just keep filling our pockets with money.
Well, and I don't believe for a second that those consultants are independent and fair-minded about this. They're going to present options to ODOT and the powers that be that go against the political or environmental philosophy that might be at force with ODOT. Like, why would you be a consultant and bite the hand that's feeding you not only consulting money, but then the lead on the project once it's done? You're going to recommend the project that gets you the most cash out of these guys and makes them happy. So where I know that there's a lot of detail we can cover, and I loved all the detail. But one of the things that stood out to me about your presentation was a couple things. One was looking at other places that had tried this, and maybe we can quickly summarize 3 examples. And then what we learned about the cost of tolling, which was the other side of this, because it's one thing to toll, it's another thing for it to actually succeed at collecting anything. And all of this works. Once you learn this, you'll be like, why are they doing this? The question is still, and all of this comes back to, they have an agenda, and they're going to do it even if the law says something, or if the politicians say something, or some independent board is supposed to review it and give their opinion. They know the answer. The rest of the process seems to be just designed to produce that answer, regardless of who's involved. So let's talk a bit about the examples of where we have seen tolling implemented to solve supposedly this very same problem.
So great lead in, buddy. Thank you. So during the 7 to 8 month value pricing policy advisory committee discussion, they talked about all of these different projects around the country that, hey, look at the wonderful things that happened. Then there's Paul Harvey and the rest of the story.
Yeah.
The tolling projects that they didn't tell the policy advisory committee about. And so they did not talk about I-405 in Seattle. That is their version of I-205, their eastern bypass of I-5 in the Seattle area. They did not talk about I-66 in Northern Virginia that runs from Northern Virginia into Washington, D.C. They didn't talk about what's happened on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, and a small asterisk a little bit here in Oregon on the Hood River. And so I-405 is our best local West Coast example of what a nightmare tolling has been. When they moved forward to implement tolls on I-405, they approached the public in the greater Seattle, King County area and said, hey, we want to put tolls on I-405 because we want to build 2 new general purpose lanes. That'll add the capacity that you want. And again, this is back now almost a decade ago. We're going to add vehicle capacity that everybody can use. Are you okay with tolling? And so the people pinched their nose and said, okay. They ran forward. They started the construction. Everything's going. And I think it was 6 months before the construction was done and they opened it. They did a bait and switch, and they switched them new capacity to high occupancy toll lanes, hot lanes. And basically, they gave them 2 tolled lanes. They converted the existing HOV lane into a tolled lane, and the new lane was a tolled lane. If you had 3 people or more in your car, you could drive them for free. Otherwise, you paid. The maximum toll was set at $10 for going up that way. And that was the reality that they started with. A separate facility, Tacoma Narrows Bridge, that was built in a second bridge built 2007. It opened up and they started tolling. I believe 2 different times the locals have screamed loud enough that the state legislature has gone in and bought down the tolls. Hi, we'll throw some general taxpayer money in to pay off some of the loans, and so we can artificially keep tolls lower so that the natives become less restless. The amazing one was I-66 in Virginia, where they added a new lane They complied with federal law that says you can only toll when you add a new lane. And in Virginia, they only tolled that new lane, but they didn't put a price cap on it.
Yeah.
And so the goal, if you do the tolling according to federal guidelines and most state guidelines as well, is that you adjust the toll rate to keep traffic flowing at 45 miles an hour or greater 90% of the time. So if you get that exemption to use that, you got to be 45 miles an hour or faster 90% of the time. In Virginia, their max tolls hit 47.50. There it is. There's the grand slam. Oh my gosh. And that is for a one-way trip, in this case, going from Northern Virginia in the morning into Washington, D.C. Unbelievable. And they earned the moniker Lexus lanes because only people that could afford very expensive cars could afford to write that kind of check every single day. And of course, it wasn't always 47.50. Sometimes it was 15, sometimes it was 25 or 30. Now we are tending to see max peaks around $40, but nonetheless, that's what happened there. And another amazing anecdote, they call this congestion pricing. You would think when there is no congestion, there would be no tolls, right? Oh, heaven forbid. No. As you said, Kevin, the purpose of this is to pick the people's pockets. So at 5:30 in the morning, when there was zero traffic congestion on I-66 in Northern Virginia, they were still charging people $5.50 to use that lane.
Yeah, again, yeah.
Welcome to government.
Yeah,
and
they do the least for the most cost, and so I'm curious. And then you mentioned that there was an example of Hood River as well, right?
And so,
hey, John, in the interest of time, I think we ought to go in and talk about the toll and collection overhead.
Okay.
And really jump into that topic because we're talking about what comes out of our pocket. And Kevin, as you said earlier, the other side of the equation is how much actually goes to new concrete and asphalt and, filling potholes and all that sort of thing. I think that's really important to dig into.
The only thing I wanted to know is I don't remember the Hood River example. Was that just a very local example? Was that just a small one?
And so a 2-sentence explanation. I've got friends there. They have been charged tolls when they didn't cross the river. That is how bad the automatic toll collection system is. Or they would drive from White Salmon in Washington to Hood River and spend 3 or 4 hours before driving back. And when they looked at their bill, they were billed 2 or 3 or 4 times instead of one over and one back. So these are not infallible and an exact nightmare for the people trying to set the record straight. So we fast forward, instead of the Value Pricing Policy Advisory Committee, ODOT has created a new community to listen, to solicit input, and make recommendations. The current one is called RTAC, the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee. Multiple people from around the 3-county plus Clark County system are on the board, and God bless him, West Linn Mayor Rory Bielostowski, mouthful there, asked questions, and typical ODOT and the consultants didn't answer it. And so he made a public records request last November wanting to know what was the cost of collection in the ODOT plan for what they're going to do on I-205. Initially, they're going to implement it on I-205 at the Abernathy Bridge, and then a little later expand it to I-5 in the Rose Quarter. The information came back. He ran the numbers with help of West Linn staff, confirming 83 to 86% is the cost of collection for what ODOT wants to do on tolling for I-205. That's like using a credit card that the credit card company is going to charge you potentially 86% leaving you just 14%, 14 cents on every dollar to go improve roads, maintain the system, whatever. It's absolute insanity. During additional RTAC discussions, various members of that 25-member panel have said RTAC feels tone deaf. They're not listening to us. They're not listening to our citizens' concerns. Why are we wasting our time? Part of ODOT's reply in talking about traffic diversion, some of them said, well, some diversion is good. Really? Wait a minute. We're going to force you onto side roads into neighborhoods and you're labeling some of that's good? Well, it's going to help the people on the freeway go faster. Or you're going to combine trips, and that's a good thing. It's insanity. And there's a quote, Oregon City Mayor Denise McGriff, our concerns are unequivocally not being heard by ODOT.
Yeah, those local roads are the ones that those mayors are going to be responsible for overseeing, the county and the city. And they're like, you're going to send what onto our roads?
Yeah. I mean, so let's paint a macro picture here. When was the last time new vehicle capacity was added to the Portland metro area? Easy answer, ding, ding, ding. The creation of I-205. It opened in December 1982. So you're talking over 4 decades ago was the last time new vehicle capacity was added. The population of the Portland metro area at the time was about 1.3 million people. Guess what? It's doubled today.
Yeah.
Do you think if the population has doubled, the number of cars on the roads doubled? Of course.
Yeah.
Which hence means you've got traffic congestion because you don't have enough capacity for the additional number of vehicles on it. And so that's the nightmare. So for all of those small towns from Oregon City, Lake Oswego, Westland, Gladstone, Canby, all along Tualatin, all along that corridor, back about 4 years ago, they got some initial feelers that said number of vehicles on many of those side roads was going to increase 50 to 100%. Well, anybody in those communities already knows Willamette Falls Drive is already congested during morning and afternoon commutes. Forget it. Canby on Highway 99. Hey, forget it. It's already a nightmare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to dump thousands and thousands more cars on it. What a nightmare for the local businesses, for the people. They had a briefing last September, and there was a group of school administrators from Clackamas County who were vehemently opposed to all of this. Why? Because they're not going to be able to run their school bus schedule. They see that congestion and they know, oh crap, we're not going to be able to pick up the kids and deliver them to the schools on time, let alone pick them up at the end of the day and get them home on time, et cetera, et cetera. We're total nightmare, just one of hundreds and hundreds of negative impacts of this whole thing, and ODOT's ignoring it. Because
the impact on business is going to be horrendous. You would say, you know, the optimist would say, hey, there's more cars driving by my business. But the reality is people can't get to your business. They're not going to stop. I'm not going to go down on Willamette Falls when all that traffic's driving through there. I'll wait till the weekend or something. I don't know. This is really going to be a problem for businesses. And we talk about this being a freight. You know, ODOT has said, well, we need the freight to keep moving. Well, the fact of the matter is some of that freight goes through town. You know, it's on its way from, I don't know, California to Washington. But a lot of that freight gets off the highways in town or gets onto the highways because we are a major commercial center. We're a shipping center as well as a distribution and consumption center. And this is not going to help freight. And guess what? All those extra axles, they pay extra dollars. That money is going to be passed on to the consumer.
That's right. It goes out of your pocket for what you're buying at the store. Plus, if you say, well, I'll just order it on Amazon, I won't go to the store. Well, that doesn't like
Nope.
float in by air balloon. It comes on vehicles,
Trucks.
not only to the distribution hubs, but then also, that truck that comes down your road, they're going to have to drive through this stuff, and they're going to have to pay these additional tolls, which means that you're going to get your product that you ordered that you used to get the next day or 2 days. It's going to be 3 days and 4 days, and it's going to cost more.
Yeah. So I want to add a little flavor to what John's been sharing with us, and thank you, John. So we've talked about tolling and 86% overhead, where a dime or 15 cents basically makes it into a pothole. Our current gasoline tax collection overhead is less than 1%. So that means that every dollar that you put, you pay in gasoline tax, is 99 cents of it is going to, it's going into ODOT. It's not all going into roads, but the collection overhead is trivial. So when we talk about increasing gasoline taxes, I know we all say, we don't want more tax. I tell you what, I'll take an extra $1 per gallon of gasoline tax before I accept a toll, because the overhead is just crazy.
And when it costs more to collect a toll and get something out of it, that means you're just going to have to increase the tolls to an astronomical amount. Now, I remember, wasn't there a slide in here that said what it's going to cost to get from one place to the other? I can't remember where it was, but there was a slide to that effect of what it'll cost to get in a typical trip once the tolling is in place. Was that somewhere else, or was that here?
Yeah, no, that was in there. And so part of my explanation, the presentation, was originally when I dug into this in 2017 and 2018, I checked, and for 405, 167 up in Seattle, the cost of collection was 35%. I stated that in a public meeting, and a Washington Transportation Commissioner called me a liar publicly. So I went to his chief of staff, who then sent me the whole report, and I was right. His own decision-making boss didn't know that fact.
Wow.
Well, then the next year, I got the annual report. It had jumped up to 43%. 2 years after that, it jumped up to 68%. Then the pandemic hit. Everybody was ordered by their governors to stay home. Guess what happened? No tolls are coming in, right? So for 3 different years, the Washington State Legislature had to use general fund tax dollars to bail out the Washington tolling system. There are 5 separate areas, 5 different systems in Washington that collect toll money. So now what has happened, if you don't lower your cost of collection, or if you don't even keep it at that quote unquote low 35%, you have less money to spend and to waste if you're a DOT. So literally what happened last fall in Washington State, the Washington State Transportation Commission, at the behest of WashDOT, debated and agreed to raise toll prices on I-405 and 167 by 50%. The maximum toll now goes to $15 instead of $10. And their initial proposal was an 80% increase. Number one. Number two, they took the 2 corridors, one I-405 up there and SR 167, which goes on the southern end of 405 down to the Port of Tacoma, and they divided them into 3 separate sections, and each section will now have the ability to pay the maximum toll. So in reality, it could be $45 for a one-way trip through that corridor. So that's what happens when the cost of collection doesn't deliver enough. The camel's nose is in the tent. The system is set up. Oh, I'm so sorry, we're not raising enough money. We got to pick your pockets for a little more.
So that we saw in Washington, in Virginia rather, this crazy toll amount. That's how you get to it in Seattle. So I think it's virtually guaranteed by design and by the high percentage cost of tolling collection. They're going to end up. It's going to cost $50 to drive through the Portland metro area and back each day, right?
Yeah, and a separate point on this, in the insanity or genius, if you're a bureaucrat, ODOT is looking at double tolls. One is a facility toll, i.e., driving across the interstate bridge, driving across the Abernathy Bridge,
Just the bridge.
or
Just the bridge.
the Tualatin River Bridge, or the Wilsonville Boone Bridge in the future. Separately, they're going to do a road usage charge, RUC as they call it. They call it an RMPP, Regional Mobility Pricing Project. All these bureaucratic nightmare names, but it is in essence a per mile charge. So ODOT's looking at double tolls per mile. Portland economist Joe Courtwright did a public records request, and the high end of it was going to cost $31.50 to drive from Vancouver to Wilsonville if you took I-205. If you took I-5, it was going to be about $28.50. That's one round trip a day, and that's what ODOT's looking at now. Again,
which we know is lower than what it'll end up being, right?
Yeah. Well, they just want
never
the
go
camels
away,
toes.
and they never go down.
Yeah.
That's the
that's right.
rule
Just
of it.
like inflation. Now, so this is, I mean, I think we've actually illustrated for our viewers just how egregious this is. How when you combine the politics of the government and you make all these stupid, inefficient decisions and you decide to go forward with them anyway and impose not only the cost of tolls, but the inefficient collection process and the punishment on the side roads by diverting traffic, which I think is fine. And then on top of that, they're actually going to fail to add capacity ultimately. So it's going to get worse and worse. You want to fight this, right? It's not just, I don't want to pay tolls. It's this catastrophic, cascade of just dumb policies that are going to price people out of being able to travel at all through that area.
Yeah.
So,
that's, you fight it with Dean.
That's right. That's what I'm getting to is I'm queuing you up.
Let me speak a little
to fight back against this.
Yeah, let me speak a little bit about that. And then some of the chat I'm watching on the side here, you keep seeing me look to the side. They're saying, so what do we do about this? First off, the politicians are the ones that got us into this mess, and the politicians aren't getting us out.
No.
There are some that have introduced bills that have tried to put constraints on tolling, both at the state level and the federal level. Not a one of those bills. Well, they were all successful in that the politicians got on the front page of the Oregonian or put on their social media that, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Not a one of those bills ever got into, it's in committee, but never got a committee hearing because the overall body will not even advance those things to the floor. Senator Wagner, the chief of I can't think of his title here in Oregon. He's the head honcho.
He's the president of the Senate.
President of the Senate. Sorry, I didn't want to just blurt that out, but he will not allow these bills to advance. So what I have done, and this goes back to some work that started in 2020. I see Les Poole in the chat. He had something to do with that. And good job, Les. We took some legislation that was an initiative petition that started in 2020. And of course, with COVID, it was a really crummy time to go out and try and gather signatures. We were all locked up and not accepting visitors. So we rebirthed that as an initiative. And the current initiative numbers, IP4, it's called Vote Before Tolls. We are taking control. The citizens are taking control. The legislators aren't going to help us. The county politicians and the city politicians are all objecting, at least regionally here, but nobody is listening to them. But we have a process here in the state of Oregon with an initiative petition where we, with enough signatures, can get an initiative on the ballot and nobody can stop us except ourselves. What Vote Before Tolls does is it requires, as the name says, a regional vote before any new tolls in the state of Oregon. That's bridges. That could be a bicycle bridge. By the way, it covers bicycles as well as cars and trucks, covers highways, covers bridges. It's very short. If you want to read it, you can go to votebeforetolls.org. It's something you can read in less than a minute. It's a regional vote because we don't think it's quite fair or makes sense that the people in Eastern Oregon would be voting on a toll in the metro area, and likewise, you wouldn't want us voting on a toll, in Southern Oregon or in Eugene or wherever else, because these have regional impacts that we don't all understand. It is retroactive. It goes back to 2017 when House Bill 2017 went in place.
Yep.
So it covers everything, and it's in one sense you could say it's deceptively simple, but it's not deceptive. It's right out in front of you, and it's what we're doing to object and to take control. The goal is, just to be really clear, it's not a no vote on tolls. I think most people will vote no on the first whatever proposal that comes up.
Yep.
But the reality is it will force ODOT and PBOT, Portland Bureau of Transportation, is also authorized to collect tolls, and they're looking at replacing some of the bridges over the Willamette River. It will require them to be transparent, to be open, to answer questions about diversion and cost and use of funds and overhead and equity and all those things that have been asked for years about the current tolling scheme. If they want to get a tolling measure passed, they are going to have to be transparent and responsive to what the citizens want. So that's the real goal, is to get them at the table. As I started off at the beginning of this, I guess we're just over an hour now. When I started off, I said, I want to pay for roads because I want good roads and I don't want them full of potholes. I want to be able to get from point A to point B somewhat predictability, in terms of time and all of that. We have to pay for our roads. We're doing a transition to electric vehicles. It's the same old issue. Doesn't this has nothing to do with that. This is a money grab, and we need to get control and say, look, if we're going to start a whole brand new, what will end up being a multi-billion-dollar tax in this state, affecting every Oregonian, because even if you don't drive on a tolled road, the trucks that are delivering your goods, they're coming through Portland, and they're going to be paying for this. We need to pay for roads. And you know what? If they could come up with a decent tolling proposal, I don't know what that is, but let's let them have the opportunity to do that. Or maybe they'll come up with a better proposal for something else. This will force that discussion. So IP4 is really the only solution. We don't have to wait for a committee. We don't have to wait for a hearing. We've been to the Supreme Court already. They ran us up there for the ballot title. And
of course they did. Yeah.
Well, but they found nothing wrong with the initiative because we wrote it in conjunction with the state legislative council, which are the lawyers that write all of our state laws. So we used, legislative lawyers to write this bill. So it's up to us. The uptake on signatures has been just phenomenal, 95% ish plus. Run into a few people that I guess they take Max, or they take bikes and they think that they're not going to get told. And then there are a lot of government employees or whatever that just can't sign, and I get that. So, but this thing's going to pass when it gets to the ballot. We're very excited about it.
Yeah, I think getting it on the ballot is the key.
Yep.
And all the stuff that we talked about before should make it apparent that if you thought, hey, it would be better if we had our elected officials handle this, that's what they've been doing. They've been handling us.
Right.
And they've been doing other things to us that are pretty unsavory, because this is what it looks like when they figure you're not paying attention, when they can repurpose something where they originally promised one thing and then they just come in and they play the old bait and switch and do something else, like change new lanes into existing lanes and take existing lanes and turn them into congestion pricing lanes. And then they don't add the capacity. It's all a dodge in the end. And the way we can, the check that needs to exist is what this does, is forces them to come up with something that's sufficiently pleasing to the voters in a particular area that they give it the green light. Let them try, right?
Right.
And actually it weighs the different options. But having roadways and infrastructure is something that has been entrusted to the government predominantly, and so this is really trying to channel the government in a direction where they stop messing with the people on this. And so a couple of the folks in here asked questions about the signature gathering. I know that it's very hard to give updates on this, but because it's a constant thing but what is the total number of signatures that you need in order to get this on the ballot? By when? And what are the prospects, do you think, of being able to do that? What do you guys need to make it happen?
Yeah, so the total count is 160,000-ish signatures. They all have to be what they call wet signatures. You have to actually physically sign a piece of paper. We can't e-sign anything in Oregon.
Right.
And they need to be collected, gathered by basically the 1st of July. We have a little bit of work we need to do, and a week or two later they're due. So we've got ourselves 4 months to gather those signatures. We have a big lift in front of us. What I've been saying to people is we got 100,000-ish to go. We're not halfway there. We're not at halfway. But granted, it's been winter and it's a tough time to gather signatures. But guess what? I saw some of the flowers start poking through. That means we're going to be getting out and then jumping into signatures. We are taking a very serious look in our leadership team. And we've got some consultants and some fundraising people that are working on the committee with us. And we're taking a very close look to see what does it take to get this, this last 4 months and those next set of signatures in place.
Across the finish line, yeah.
And ultimately, no matter how you look at it, it depends on the people that are on this call and the hundreds of their neighbors. We don't just need your signature. You can go to the website and download a single signer petition. We need you to get your spouse or your partner and your neighbors and your coworkers and the people at your church group or at your, when you go to lunch or you have Daytona 500 party if you had one today. We want you to gather signatures wherever that gathering is, because that's where the multiplier is. If we do this one signature at a time, we won't get there. So we're taking a hard, serious look. We're still full steam ahead on the 2024 ballot. But I got to tell you, if it looks like we're not going to make that ballot, we may make the difficult decision and say, hey, let's do this for 2026 because it's retroactive. It doesn't really matter. Remember that we've been successful in deferring the start of tolls just because we made this uncomfortable for Governor Kotek and Senator Wagner and the other folks in the state legislature. They, about 6 or 8 months ago, the governor put tolling on pause, didn't stop it. They're still spending tens of millions of dollars per month advancing the whole program. But we were successful in getting the governor to put tolling on pause till January 1st, 2026. And that's not very far away. But notice that that's well past the election in 2024, where people want to retain their jobs. And we're going to put a spotlight on that. And also in 2025, they're wanting to pass a very, very large, like HB 2017, they want to pass another transportation bill, billions of dollars of transportation. And they don't want all of this politics mucking things up. So we're looking at what makes the most sense. We're full steam ahead right now on 2024, but don't panic. We're not sharing the exact numbers. I always get asked this question. Somebody whispers in my ear, what's the exact number? Sharing the exact number is only going to give ODOT and the people that are opposed to us an opportunity to change the media agenda, to change the messaging and that sort of thing. And we just don't want the media agenda to change the messaging and that sort of thing. And we just don't want, you're all friends here, right? We don't need any distractions. We need to keep our nose to the ground, keep gathering those signatures, 10 sheets, 10 signatures per sheet at a time.
Well, and I did have the website here. I've posted it in the links, and everybody who's watching this on all the different social media can see this, and you can go right there and download and sign the petition and send it in.
I challenge you to make the website crash.
Yeah, try to crash it.
Right? Go for it. And it's really simple. The 10 up petitions, there's a form there for you to fill out. We'll mail those out to you so that they're printed properly and all that sort of stuff. So it's just so important that everybody, even you, Kevin, we got to get you out there, and I want to see you on the circulator on the bottom line, having sent in a sheet or 2 or 10 of those. But everybody needs to not assume somebody else is going to do this. I tell you what, I'm not going to pay your $37 toll when you drive up to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So you know what? You need to do your own petition work. I can't do the petition work for you. You got to do it yourself.
And you can donate to this too on that
Of
site,
course.
which is also important because of all the things that we need to do. Sometimes you got to get different paid efforts involved with this as well. So,
Yeah.
well, this is fantastic. I think we gave everybody the real horror story on what we're facing with tolls, and also the real opportunity to put a stop to it before the politicians that have been running things can stick it to us. And they won't announce that they've done it. You'll just suddenly be driving down the highway, and then boom,
Right.
you're paying a $37.50 toll. John, did you have a last word that you wanted to share there?
So I was going to put in a plug, my friend. One of the almost last slides in my slide deck, I had 3 graphics showing where people can go to learn more information.
Yeah.
And the first one was Dean's Vote Before Tolls website. A second one is Oregon Tolling Updates. That was created by the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce because they know their businesses are going to get slaughtered if this happens. So they've got that going. And then the final piece is a website that I took over management of. It's called notolls.com. But it wasn't the very bottom slide, but it was about 5 up. It was the last one I used on my presentation there. So keep going. Oh, now go up, 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 up.
So votebeforetolls.org is where you can download the petition and learn more. There you go. One back, another one back.
Nope. Down, down, down. Ah, dang. So another one. So I think, there you go. That was it.
Got it. NoTolls.com and votebeforetolls.org is where you can go and get the petitions and donate and request the 10 signature petitions and stay informed too, because this is going to come kind of like a big tsunami that's already on its way, which we know too much about from the past and all the policies. So again, votebeforetolls.org and notolls.com, folks. And again, Dean and John, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. This has been great. I think that people can get the information they need, but also I don't like just worrying them with a bunch of information and then they wring their hands. We can solve this, and we can actually do it without asking any of these corrupt politicians to do it for us. Because they won't. So,
and let me just put a bug in people's ears. This idea of holding government to accountable, which is what IP4 does. This holds them accountable specifically on IP4. But imagine what they think when they realize the citizens could hold us accountable for everything. You know, they just talked about a property tax here in Oregon, not just a real property tax statewide, but also a personal property tax. It's like they're just throwing stuff and see what sticks on the wall. But this idea of accountability, IP4, I don't want to vote on every single issue. That's why we put representatives, down in Salem. We need to do a better job. Well, we're probably doing a better job, with your audience here, but the rest of the state's not doing a very good job of who they vote down there. We want those people to represent us and do a good job and be accountable. But when they realize that the leash is being put around their neck and the collar is tightening, hopefully we're going to see some people stand up and say, nope, enough. But we've got to take that first step.
Amen. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here tonight. Everyone, votebeforetolls.org to get signed up and to fix this problem, and make sure that we can afford to live in this fine state. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great rest of the evening, and thank you to everyone who's been watching here, following on social media, and share this with everyone you can. A lot of folks are oblivious to this, and I think you can literally talk to anyone of any party, and they're going to get it because they're all going to have to pay these tolls. Thanks a lot, and have a great night, everyone.